Good morning, everyone. We just got back from the motor shop and we picked up a bunch of parts that we needed to continue building the 331. We left off in the last video where we weren't quite sure if our bearing tolerances on our crankshaft bearings, our main bearings, if those were right or not. We were getting some pretty big numbers. I think our numbers here were going all the way up to, let's see, we had a 0.0026 and 0.0027, and then that middle one was really far out at 0.0031. Well, I gave a call to John over at Mission and told him what was going on, and he said, no, actually, 26, 27, 28 is perfectly fine with him. I went back and watched the videos of the interviews with him, following him around the shop, and after watching all that, I remembered he said, pick the right oil for the application. So in his mind, we're gonna go bigger on our clearances, and then we're gonna pick a thicker oil to kind of make up for that. I went ahead because I wasn't sure, and I measured the bearing clearances again, the exact same way. If you're not sure how to do that, check the last video. There's tons of YouTube videos about how to do this. We checked the bearing clearances again, and now what I'm getting is 0.0023, 0.0024. That middle one again was the biggest at 0.0026. So I'm getting some inconsistencies in being able to reproduce the measurements that I got the first time. So what I'm gonna do today is we're gonna start off by redoing those clearances one more time, just to make sure that something weird's not going on. We're gonna follow up by doing our connecting rods. We gotta do the bearing clearances on those. And then we need to start jumping into rings, because filing all of those rings is going to take an insanely long amount of time. I will do my best to do it quickly and time lapse through it, but you have to go slow, because if you do it too fast, you run the risk of messing up a bearing or messing up a ring, taking too much off, and then you got to get more rings. So we got our zero balanced harmonic balancer. We have our Kenton oil pan. We have our roller lifters, our spider gear assembly to hold the lifters in the block. We have our ARP bolts so that we can get our main caps on. We have a high pressure oil pump. Now we went with the high pressure oil pump for a number of reasons. We're running a bigger clearance, and well, we have a remote oil filter on this thing. And so if you start reading and doing some research online and following the forums and watching YouTube, there's a lot of conversations about what oil pump to select and why you don't want a high pressure or high volume. But for our application, that's actually a suggested component. Let's go ahead and get started on triple checking our bearing clearances. Okay guys, we took our measurements again. We're still kind of all over the map between 2.3 and 2.6. It's got to be somewhere in there. We're duplicating a lot of results, but the one that's duplicated again is that 0.031 on our thrust bearing main. So what we're going to do is we took that cap off and we need to shrink the distance off of this side. So we're going to take this and put it on some sandpaper and just take off, you know, a little bit at a time until we get that 3-1 down a bit, because that gap is actually too big. Real quick before this battery dies, we had some 1500 and some 800. The 1500 wasn't doing enough. We used the 800 and we took off a 10,000th. We got it again and did some more work on it, and we essentially polished the underside of that cap there, and now we're sitting right where we need to be. So there you go. You got too much gap in there, and you got one that's different from all the others, and it's really high. Just take it, get yourself a block with some sandpaper, and just lightly sand it. Keep testing it until it gets back to where you want it. Now that we have measured all of these and we know we're good to go, we can take some of the Permatex Ultra Slick Lube, drop our crankshaft on here, put on our mains, drop in those ARPs, and we're ready to go to start our connecting rods, which are over here. And if y'all remember from 2 videos ago, I think, John was nice enough to write on here that the gap on these, the vertical gap, needs to be 0.0021 to 0.0023. So that's what we're aiming for. We were checking our thrust bearing clearance, forward and backward on the crankshaft, and I had like 1,000th, like 1,000th of clearance, and that's just not enough on these things. You need a little bit more. So we unbolted this, we gotta pop this off, and we gotta sand down the outsides of the bearings just a little bit. We don't wanna go too much, but we do need to take some off, so we're gonna go ahead and do that. I had to sand that thing a couple of times, on and off, and cleaning it and blasting it with air, but now, let's just get a reference on that needle. For what, 27? We want 4 to 8 thousandths of clearance forward to backward thrust on this thing. So that's all the way forward. Pry this thing back, forward, and back. And now we're at 31. So we're on the very low side. We got barely 4 thousandths of clearance. But when the motor gets running, and to take into account there's a little bit of lube in there, we're probably between 4 and 8 thousandths, no problem. So now that we have our thrust clearance good, and the rest of our bearing clearance is good. Now we can actually begin on the rods. So we got to measure those journals again, write those down. Take our H-beam rods from Eagle. ARPs are done at 63 foot-pounds, and then we'll put them in the vise and make sure they're at 63, and then we'll just do the same thing we did with our mains, but instead of doing it 5 times, we got to do it 8 times. Ruh-roh. Our journal ODs are all within like 3/10,000ths of each other. And then we did our first rod. Where did that thing go? Oh, here it is. So we put our bearings in, torqued it down to 63 foot-pounds, gave ourselves a measurement, and it turns out our bearing ID is at 2.1033. Subtracting those numbers, that tells us we get a clearance of 0.0038 inches. What's our goal? Well, 0.0021 to 0.0023. We'll call it 0.0024. We are a good 16/10,000ths off. These are STDX bearings, the X meaning that these are 0.001 inches larger in diameter than standard bearings. So even if we had gotten standard bearings, we would still be off from this because we'd be at 0.0028, which puts us a good 0.5 over. So unfortunately, that means that this video is done for the day. I could start filing rings, but nobody really wants to watch me do that. At least I don't think you do. There's a lot of those. I'll just time lapse through doing them all. I'll show you how to do one maybe in the next video. Until then, I don't have a choice but to wait and order some bearings. So if you didn't like this video, go ahead and just downvote it. Leave me a comment down below telling me how I'm just wasting your time and how I'm wasting my own time making these stupid videos. I'm just kidding, guys. If you like the video, please upvote it. Like, comment, subscribe. We're trying to get a lot more members. And yeah, thanks for sticking with me, guys. Catch you next time.